This video is on finding the volume of pyramids. If you have a prism and a pyramid, and the area of the base is exactly the same. For instance, if this square were a 3 by 3 for an area of 9, and this square were a 3 by 3 for an area of 9, and you were tasked with finding the volume where you had to multiply it by the height or depth of the prism or pyramid, you would find, and actually if you filled like both of these up with water or sand, you would find that this prism holds 3 times as much volume as this pyramid does, which means the pyramid holds 1/3 as much as the prism does, assuming that the bases are exactly the same. So if a prism formula is the area of the base, big B, times the height of the prism, and a pyramid holds 1/3 as much volume, then a pyramid formula is 1/3 times the base, the area of the base times the height of the prism. And multiplying by 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. So I could write this formula big BH over 3, big BH divided by 3. It would be the same thing. Speaking of prisms for a moment, all of these are different types of prisms: rectangular prism, triangular prism, circular prism, trapezoidal prism, semicircle prism. The formula is the same for all: big BH, the area of the base, times the height of the prism. The thing that changes is how you find big B, how you find the area of the base. On a rectangle, it's length times width. On a triangle, half the base times the height. On a circle, pi r square. On a trapezoid, half the height times the sum of the bases. On a semicircle, half pi r square. But however you find the base, big B, you always multiply it by the height or depth of the prism, the distance between the two bases. When you're doing a pyramid, all of this will be exactly the same, except you'll have to multiply each one by 1/3 or divide each one by 3. Here we have a rectangular pyramid. It shows the formula: instead of big BH, it's 1/3 big BH. Here we have a triangular pyramid. It's kind of confusing to look at a 3-dimensional figure on a 2-dimensional sheet of paper. But the triangle is a 6 by 8 triangle. So when they multiply the base and height of the triangle to find the area, to find big B, it's half the base times the height. They use 6 and 8. 6 times 8 is 48, times 1/2 or divided by 2. The area of that triangular base is 24. Then the height of the prism is 5 centimeters, and that is what is multiplied, or what is plugged in for the H. Now, if you have a scientific calculator right here, you could say 1/3 times 24 times 5. What I like to do is say 5 times 24 to get 120, and then I leave that in my calculator and I just hit divide by 3, and you'll get 40. Multiplying by 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. This 1, 24, and 5 are all in the numerator. 3, understood 1 are all in the denominator. So multiplying by 1/3, dividing by 3, same thing. Let's do guided practice number 1 together. Find the volume of a pyramid with a base area of 90 square feet and a height of 12 feet. Well, I notice it gives me base area, it gives me big B, and it calls it square feet. That's another indication it has given me big B. It doesn't even tell me what kind of pyramid it is. It could be a rectangular pyramid, a triangular pyramid, a pentagonal pyramid, a trapezoidal pyramid. It does not matter. It told me big B, so I don't have to find the area of the base. It told me the area of the base is 90 square feet. So I'm going to use 90 for big B, and it says it has a height of 12 feet. So I'm going to use 12 for H, the height. So here I've written out the problem again: the volume of a pyramid if the base area is 90 square feet and the height is 12 feet. My formula for pyramids is 1/3 big BH, or I could write big BH over 3. Big B, base area is 90, height is 12. See if you can find the volume of that pyramid. So You could just put 1/3 times 90 times 12 in your calculator if you have a scientific calculator. You could say 1/3 of 90 is 30, and 30 times 12. You could say 1/3 of 12 is 4, and 4 times 90. You could say 12 times 90 first, get your answer, and divide it by 3. Lots of ways you could do it. Let's see how I do it. So on this one, I chose to say 1/3 of 90 is 30, and 30 times 12 gives me 360 cubic feet. But I could have said 12 times 90 in my calculator, got my answer, left that answer in my calculator, and just hit divide by 3. And that would also give me my answer. Try this one. See if you can find the volume of this rectangular pyramid or square pyramid. The rectangle or square is a 15 by 15, and the height of the pyramid is 12. See if you can plug that into the formula 1/3 big BH and find the volume of this pyramid. Here I have rewritten the problem. Volume of a pyramid, the length is 15, the width is 15, and the height of the pyramid is 12. My formula is 1/3 big BH. Big B is the area of my base. In this case, my base is a rectangle, so I use length times width to get the area of the base. The length and the width of the base are both 15. Now, this is all multiplication. So order of operations now tells me I can multiply in any order I want. Technically, you're supposed to go left to right, but you could do it in any order you want and get the right answer. So you could say 1/3 times 15 times 15 times 12 in a scientific calculator, and it would give you the right answer. I chose to find the area of my base. 15 times 15 is 225. Multiply that, and let me just say this. In my calculator, I say 15 times 15, it gives me 225. I leave that in my calculator and I say times 12. I get 2,700. I leave that in my calculator and I say divide by 3, and I get 900. So literally, it only takes me a few seconds to do this. 15 times 15 in my calculator gives me 225. That's the area of my base. Leave that in my calculator, hit times 12, it gives me 2,700. Leave that in my calculator, hit divide by 3, because that's the same as multiplying by 1/3, and I get 900 cubic inches. Now let's go back to our formula sheet. So prisms volume is big BH. That's easy for me to remember. Pyramid is 1/3 the volume of a prism with the exact same size base. So a pyramid is 1/3 big BH. That's easy for me to remember. But now we're going into a sphere, and a sphere has a completely different looking formula. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. So that's one you either have to memorize or have written down in notes that you're allowed to use on a test. A sphere volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So let's look at finding the volume of a sphere. So here we have a picture of a sphere. The formula for a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. And here's an example of one to work out. The only measurement we need from a sphere is the radius, halfway across the sphere. A sphere is like a globe. The radius is 8, which is the only measurement I need, so I plug it into my formula. If you know the formula and you know how to do order of operations, it's easy to plug in. It's one thing, the radius. Now, what is important that we know order of operations, we have to do this exponent before we multiply. So the first thing you have to do is 8 cubed in a scientific calculator, or 8 times 8 times 8 in a regular calculator. Once you do that, you can say times pi times 4/3, and boom, you got your answer. Now, the book's not going to show the work. I'm going to show some. But if you have a scientific calculator, go 8 cubed, get your answer, leave it in the calculator, hit times the pi button, times 4/3, and it'll give you the answer. So let's do one together. Here's a picture of a sphere. It has a radius of 5. That's the only information we need from this. It has a radius of 5. Now I'm ready to plug into my formula. So volume of the sphere, my radius is 5. I've written the formula. I've plugged in for 5. So if you're doing it with me, first cube the 5. Once you cube the 5, you should have gotten 125. Now you can leave the 125 on the right side of pi. I wrote it on the left side of pi. Now, I could, in a scientific calculator, say 4/3 times 125 times pi, or in any order I want to multiply those together. But I'm going to show the work if you're doing it on a regular calculator and you're trying to be logical and understand every step. 5 cubed is 125. I like to say 125 pi. Now, instead of multiplying by 4/3, which I can't do on a regular calculator, I'm going to say 125 times 4 to get 500. Once you multiply 125 times 4 on your calculator, now leave that answer in your calculator. Now hit divided by 3. And now I get a number to multiply by pi. It's a repeating decimal. Leave that in your calculator. Don't clear it out. Leave that in your calculator and hit times 3.14, and you'll get your answer. So again, first thing you got to do is cube the 5. I got my answer. Instead of multiplying by 4/3, because I'm pretending I don't have a scientific calculator, I multiply 125. I leave that in my calculator, 125. Hit times 4 equals, it gives me 500. Now I hit divide by 3. It gives me a repeating decimal. Now I hit times 3.14, and it gives me my answer. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say it didn't give me a picture. It just said find the volume of a sphere. The radius is 10 feet. Okay, so all I need to know is the radius. And I'm going to write my formula down, and I'm going to take that 10 feet and I'm going to plug in right here for radius. So first step is cube that radius. I know that 10 cubed is 1,000 because it's 10 times 10 times 10, and every time you multiply by 10, you just add a 0. But your first step is to cube that 10 and get 1,000. Now, if you have a scientific calculator, you can just multiply pi times 1,000 times 4/3 in any order you want, and you'll get the right answer. If you don't have a scientific calculator, I prefer to say 10 times 10 times 10, get 1,000, leave that in my calculator, hit times 4. I'm giving you time to do it. Hit times 4, which gives me 4,000. Leave that in my calculator. Now hit divide by 3. That gives you a repeating decimal. Leave that in your calculator. If you don't have a pi button, now say times 3.14. And that gives you your answer of 4,187 cubic feet, approximately. Now your answer will vary depending on whether or not you have a pi button. If you have a pi button, your answer will be slightly higher than if you use 3.14. I'm not even sure which one I used when I worked this out, a pi button or 3.14, but somewhere around 4,187. Tests will normally be multiple choice, and you won't have any answers so close that you couldn't be off by a couple of feet on this one. Now let's look at finding the volume of a cone. A cone is a type of pyramid. So we're back to the formula, 1/3 big BH, which works for any pyramid. Big B on a cone is pi r squared because the area of the base is a circle. Pi r squared is how you find the area of a circle. So here we have a cone. It has a radius of 5 and a height of 7, which are the two measurements I need. So I'm going to plug in over here, radius of 5, height of 7. It is very important that we follow order of operations and we square this 5 first. Once you square that 5 and get 25, you can just leave that in your calculator if you have a scientific calculator and say times pi, times 1/3, times 7, or you can multiply those 4 in any order you want as long as you square the 5 first and get 25. And that's what you would get if you wanted to try it in your calculator. If you have a scientific calculator, hit 5 squared to get your answer, and then say times these other 3, however you want to do them. Now, when I work it out, I'm going to show my work like I don't have a scientific calculator. Okay, so let's pretend we looked at a picture of a cone, and the circular base had a radius of 5.5, and the height of the pyramid, or the height of the cone, was h. Formula for any pyramid, which includes cones, is 1/3 big BH. Big B stands for the area of the base. The base is a circle, so it's pi r squared to find the area of the base. I plug in the two numbers I know. 5.5 is my radius, and 8 is my height. See if you can do the math on this, and I'll unveil it step by step. First step is to square the radius. So you should have gotten 30.25. Now, of course, scientific calculator, you can multiply those four together all at one time, but I'm going to pretend I don't have a scientific calculator. So I'm going to multiply 30.25. I'm going to leave that in my calculator after I square it, after I say 5.5 times 5.5, and I get this. Now I'm going to multiply this times 8. You should have gotten 242. Okay, now, instead of multiplying by pi, I'm going to divide by 3 next. So I'm going to leave that 242 in my calculator, hit divided by 3. Go ahead and do that. When you divide by 3, you get 80.6 repeating. And the last thing I like to multiply by most of the time is pi, because sometimes an answer on the test would be 80.6 pi. But most of the time, they require you to multiply those two numbers together. And when you do, you should get somewhere around 253.3 cubic meters. If you have a pi button, your answer may be a little higher than if you don't have a pi button. Try 2A. Find a volume of a cone with a radius of 6 and a height of 20. I've written the formulas for you. First step is to plug 6 in for R, 20 for H. Next step is to square that radius. When you square 6, 6 times 6 is 36. If you have a scientific calculator, you can multiply 1/3 times 36 times pi times 20 in any order you want. If you don't have a scientific calculator, you could still multiply in any order you want. You could say 36 divided by 3 is 12, then multiply by 20, then times pi, which is what I did. Or you could have said 36 times 20 first, then divided by 3. I did this because I could do it without a calculator. 36 divided by 3 is 12, and I can say 12 times 20 without a calculator. 12 times 10 is 120, so 12 times 20 is 240. Now I need a calculator. 240 times 3.14, or pi, depending on whether you have a pi button or use 3.14, your answer should be somewhere around 753.6 cubic feet. All right, let's mix them up. We're going to do them one at a time, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the pictures because I'm not going to put the pictures back up each time. First, we're going to do a cone. Notice it gives me the diameter all the way across. I need the radius, so I'm going to have to cut that 7.5 and get 3.5. Here it gives me a rectangular pyramid. 12.2 and 4 is my base, and the height is 15.1. Here it gives me some sort of pyramid. I don't even need to know what the base is because it tells me area of the base is 44.5. I know that's the area of my base because it gives me this square telling me it's a two-dimensional measurement. So I'm going to plug 44.5 in for big B on that one. And then 5 is going to be my height. Here I have a sphere. I'm given a radius of 7, which is all I need. So let's try number 1, volume of a cone. It gave us a diameter of 7 all the way across, so we know we have to cut that in half to get a radius of 3.5. It told us the height was 9. Here's our formula for any pyramid, including a cone. I broke down big B to pi r squared for us. So plug 3.5 in for the radius, 9 in for the height, and find the volume of that cone. And plug in 3.5 for R and 9 for H. It looks like this. The first step is to square that 3.5 and get 12.25. If you have a scientific calculator, you can do the rest all in one step. I chose to, once I said 3.5 times 3.5, I left that 12.25. Well, I didn't. I could have left that 12.25 in my calculator, hit 9 times 9 times pi divided by 3. A lot of different ways you could have done it. I chose to try to do it in my head. So I said 1/3 of 9 is 3. 3 times 12.25 is 36.75. Then I multiplied by pi. You can multiply in any order you want, as long as you square that first. And if you're dividing by 3 instead of multiplying by 1/3, you only do that once. So I did it once. I said 1/3 of 9, or 9 divided by 3 is 3 here. Now I'm done with division. I can multiply those in any order I want. Let's try number 2. Volume of a rectangular pyramid. The length is 12.2, width is 4, height is 15.1. Plug those in, find the volume of the rectangular pyramid. Honestly, you could plug all of these into the wrong place and still get the right answer. So my length and my width are 12.2 and 4. My height is 15.1. You can mix those three numbers up because you end up multiplying, and you multiply in any order you want. I multiplied my length and width together and got the area of my base. Then I multiplied times the height. Then I left that in my calculator and I hit divided by 3. But if you had a scientific calculator right here, you could have said 1/3 times 12.2 times 4 times 15.1, and you would have gotten the right answer. Let's look at number 3. Number 3 said find the volume of a pentagonal pyramid. Remember, it gave us the area of the base, 44.5, and the height, 5. So we don't even have to worry about finding the area of the base. Go ahead and do number 3. On number 3, it gave us the area of the base, 44.5. It gave us the height, 5. You can multiply those in any order you want. I chose to multiply these two together, leave that in my calculator, and hit divided by 3, which gave me my answer. Number 4 was a sphere. It gave us a radius of 7. So plug 7 in for your radius and try to find the volume of that sphere. Order of operations, say you have to say 7 cubed first to get 343. If you have a scientific calculator, you can multiply all that together now. If you don't, what I would do is 343 times 4 is 1372. Leave that in my calculator, hit divided by 3. I get 457.3 repeating. Leave that in my calculator, hit 3.14 times 3.14, and I got my answer, which should be somewhere around 1,436 cubic yards. Let me show you 2 more real quick. I'm going to look at 12 and 16. 12 says pentagonal pyramid. It gives me base area and height, so I plug 52 in for big B, 12 in for height. On 16, it says the sphere has a diameter of 1.8, so I got to make sure that I cut that 1.8 in half when I do it. Let's look at those 2. So on the pentagonal pyramid, I plugged 52 in for big B, 12 in for height, multiplied those 2 numbers together, left that in my calculator, hit divided by 3, got my answer. On the sphere, we had to remember it gave us a diameter of 1.8, so we had to cut it in half to get a radius of 0.9. Order of operations, so we have to cube the radius first. I leave that in my calculator, hit times 4. Then I have to divide by 3. Then I have to multiply by pi. So here are the 3 volume formulas that we've used so far. Prisms, big BH, big B is the area of the base. Pyramid, 1/3 big BH. And a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. You can memorize them, or you can put them in notes that you're allowed to use on a test. Thank you.